This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs? Welcome into another episode of the Draft Room. I believe, if memory, you know what? I'm just going to look it up like I usually do because I can never remember to look these up on time. I want to say it's episode 21, but I'm going to double check. Got to switch over here. Stalling for time. And this is indeed episode 21. It's the last one we did with Dave and I. You can check it out right now. It's episode 20. I am joined today. You'll notice that JD is not next to me. I'm not with JD as I always am. You're seeing a blast from the past. Is this 2015? Is this 2016? Do I hear the drum line playing underneath us? Is this the PTP? No, it is not. Brandon Swanee Swanson is back in the building. Swanee, how you doing? How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great, Ricky. It's great to be back. I do miss that drum line. Can you believe that was 2015? We're in 2024. I mean, years ago.
2015 is when we started the PTP, right? Right? Because I know we ended 16. At 2018. It was right before the pandemic is when we ended it. Was it 16?
All good things came to an end then.
It was a long time ago. But Brandon, we are not talking about, well, we're kind of talking about college sports in a way because of the draft, but we're not really talking about the college part of the draft today. We're focusing on the NFL draft. We're looking at teams today because there's some news going on. Before we get into everything, though, quick housekeeping, as I always love to do. Discord link, you can join the greatest community in the universe down below in the description. Our Patreon's also there to support us. Also, check out our sponsor for today's video, BETUS. It's got a sign-up bonus for you guys. You can click that link down below, get your sign-up bonus of $125. You'll hear more about them later, though. And then also, sub button if you love today's podcast, like button if you like it, and let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. Brandon, let's get into what we're talking about today, though. And the first thing I am a little mad about still, I hate that people continue to bring it up because this is something that came around about the 4th of February. Colin Cowherd on his show. I used to be a big Hurdy, but now I'm not. I don't listen to Cowherd as much. And it came across my timeline, and I'm looking here. On February 4th, he said on his show, New England's got the number 3 pick. What does New England desperately need? A playmaker. Justin Jefferson, switch picks. I'll give you next year's first rounder. And Justin Jefferson go from 11 to 3 because they've already got Jordan Addison. They've got the tight end they need. They've got the skill players. Next year's 1 and Justin Jefferson to move up to 3 and get your quarterback. Brandon, I think that the Vikings, obviously Vikings fan, I'm wearing my shirt for today's podcast. I think and it didn't stop. People just kept talking, New England radio was like, oh man, could you imagine if we got Justin Jefferson out there? Oh yeah, I know it. We can get it's a bad New England accent. It's not even New England. Brandon, I'm going to ask you, non-Vikings fan, should the Vikings trade Justin Jefferson to move up in the NFL draft?
No, I don't think it makes any sense to trade Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's a premium talent. You don't get rid of a premium talent and just what would feel for nothing at that point. I think that he's too good. He's the nucleus of that team. Yes, Jordan Addison's good. Yes, TJ Hawkinson's good. Yeah, that's great. You also don't even know who you're going to have at quarterback next year either. And not necessarily that makes the biggest difference because it's Justin Jefferson and you could have you or me and he's going to still make us look just a tad better than what we would be. You don't get rid of a guy like that. You just don't, unless you are getting a massive haul. Do it. I just think that the Minnesota Vikings would be doing themselves such a disservice. I think that they would be doing a disservice to their fans. I mean, when fans are tuning in, what are they tuning in for? Are they tuning in to see TJ Hawkinson. No offense, Tej. They're not. They're tuning in to see Justin J.J. Jefferson. That's who they're tuning in for. I mean, Ricky, we play fantasy football together.
Yeah.
My buddies and one of the guys in that fantasy football group, he has had Justin Jefferson and loved being able to just watch him, tune into the games to watch him every single week. Yes, you're invested because you're a fantasy owner, but you're invested because you just love how the guy plays football. Again, I think these are all reasons why you don't get rid of a guy like that. He's just a world-class talent. Don't come around every single day, and you could say again, well, we've got Jordan Addison. That's great. He's not your number one guy yet. He's really good, but he's not your number one guy yet. And I think you would see a big drop-off if you get rid of Jefferson. Of course, you'd have to see what are you going to get for him. I think the case is there to, again, be made. You don't even explore it. I do it.
Well, and here's the other thing, and like, I'm pulling up right now the exact list. Like, first off, do the Vikings need a quarterback? In my opinion, yes. Kirk Cousins is not the answer. I've been saying it now for about the last 2 seasons. I love, like, Kirk off the field. Everything I see in like the quarterback documentary, in the just interviews that he's in, everything with Kirk Cousins, I absolutely love him. On the field, Kirk ain't my guy. He hashtag not my quarterback. He's never going to be the guy. He'll stop a team from winning the Super Bowl, like the 49ers, because the Kirk Cousins curse, if you lose to Kirk in the regular season, you ain't winning the Super Bowl. That's never happened. But he's also never going to win a Super Bowl with his team. And I love Kirk off the field. We need a quarterback. Yes, people are like, oh, trade up to get so. I don't think the Vikings need to trade up to get that quarterback, mainly because I think the guy that's perfect for us is Michael Penix. That's my own personal bias. I love Penix. I would love to see him in a Vikings jersey. And on the flip side, the Patriots, they sit there at 3, Brandon. If you trade for Justin Jefferson, move down to 11, you're basically saying, okay, we're either going to take Penix, we're either going to take Bo Nix. Like, this is a team that I don't think their fans realize. You're not keeping Mac Jones. Your coach Mayo has already said that. Has already said Mac Jones is not going to be our quarterback. What is it going to be? Bailey Zapke? It's going to be Nathan Rourke. You're going to bring him back? You're going to bring back Garrett Gilbert? Are those the quarterbacks you're going to bring back to throw to Justin Jefferson? No. What's probably going to happen is the Patriots will stay at 3. They'll take the best quarterback on the board. And that's probably what they should do.
I think the bigger thing, though, then comes to Jefferson is he's been on the Vikings his entire career so far. You know, not a long time. I mean, he's still a young guy. To win. I mean, he went to the playoffs, obviously not last year, 2 years ago, had a little bit of a taste of it. Obviously, the Vikings come up short, and there's some disappointment there. They believed that they had a better team, could have gone further, and you lose to the New York Football Giants. And that's still a stinger.
It was a bad game.
Even in a game in a year where the Giants were pretenders and actually were good, but I think it's one of those where, getting back to the point of, does he want to be starting again in a rebuild? I mean, this is a guy who has said basically that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he would be with Kirk Cousins. He likes Kirk Cousins. He would potentially go to where Kirk Cousins would go. I don't think this is a guy that's waiting for that wants to wait around for whoever it is. I mean, insert name here. I don't think he wants to do that.
He's kind of, I will cut you, he's been a little flip-floppy on this. He originally said Kirk's his guy. He wants Kirk. But then he was doing, there was an interview I saw him on like Super Bowl Row or whatever they called it. And he was like, you know what? I really don't care who the quarterback is. As long as they can throw me the ball, I'll go and catch it. And there's a part of me that goes, oh, okay. Is he now getting the vibe that the Vikings aren't going to bring Kirk back, and he doesn't want to burn bridges with the organization? Because to me, it should
I also
be.
think that
Go ahead.
I was saying him saying that is like a female saying, "No, don't get me anything for Valentine's Day." Yes, of course, get them
I
something
don't need
for
anything for
Valentine's
Christmas.
Day.
I'm fine.
We're not doing gifts this year, right, honey? Nope, no gifts. And then you show up with no gift,
Gentlemen, you always get her a gift.
You just got two. Like, definitely didn't mean that. So it's like one of those things where I think that he may say that he doesn't mean it. He certainly wants a guy who's a quarterback, a team, a system where one, he's going to be the focal point. They're going to be able to get him the football. They're going to win. I mean, I think that that's a bigger thing for some of these guys is they will take, and I certainly don't know Justin Jefferson personally, but I feel like a guy of that caliber, there are things that you might be able to forego if you know you're going to be in a winning system. You want to go and you want to win. It's a lot of times it's no fun to put up big numbers on a 3-win team.
Now, one question I will throw your way, and this comes from a conversation, not even a conversation, it was just a quote that was thrown out in our Discord. So right now, Justin Jefferson, he's getting paid $19 million a year, but let's be completely honest, he is, when he re-signs his deal, if he re-signs, because I'll be honest, that is one thing that has just peeved me off with Justin Jefferson. Do you want to be here or do you not want to be here? Like, oh, I'm not going to sign my long-term deal till I know what the quarterback situation is. All right, so are you committed or are you not committed? Because if he re-signs, he's going to be the next top paid wide receiver. Like, he's going to set the record for the money that wide receivers are going to get. And Kai from our Discord, Brandon, posed a comment that I think deserves being looked at. Is the exact comment was, Kai, being a Lions fan, said, I already saw this story 10 years ago with Calvin Johnson. You never want a wide receiver to be your best player. And he said, highest paid receiver equal never wins. Do you agree with that? If Justin Jefferson becomes the highest paid on the Vikings, is that a bad thing for the Vikings?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a great comment. I mean, it's certainly going to make you think, and it's trying to now make me think to all the different scenarios. I mean, looking at the team that just won the Super Bowl, their highest paid player certainly is not anyone in their receiving core, not even close. You could put their whole receiving core together; they're still not close to their highest paid player. One of them they didn't
play because he would just drop the ball.
God. But I think, as a quick aside, thank God for that. But you have to cycle through the different teams and stuff like that. I'm trying to think, Raiders, Devontae Adams, high paid wide receiver. I mean, didn't have a great season, but also they had Josh McDaniels, which already puts you back. So again, I don't want to take all the time doing that, but so I think it's an accurate statement in the sense of put all your eggs into your wide receiver basket. You're not necessarily going to be able to have anything left over to put someone in a good position to then throw to them and be good on the offensive line and have a good running back and do all of those types of things. But I think looking in those Detroit years, with a guy like who was throwing it to him, Calvin Johnson at that point, John Kitna, guys like that, I mean, they could sling it. Detroit just had a lot of other, glaring issues with guys who were supposed to be really good and just were not. But I think, though, even if you have Justin Jefferson be your number one guy in terms of the amount of money that you're paying him, and you're still talking about the Vikings, you've got Justin Jefferson and you have Jordan Addison and you have TJ Hawkinson, and then you have insert quarterback here, still have a lot of really good weapons. Of course, that's just how long are you really going to have them for?
Let's see. Calvin Johnson played from 2007 to 2015. His starting quarterbacks, Brandon, in the league was, you're right, John Kitna for his rookie season. Then he had Dan Orthlowski, Dante Culpepper. Matthew Stafford came in at 2009, played 10 games and then 3 games, and then pretty much from 11 all the way to 15, it was Stafford and Johnson. So, like, yeah, they had Matthew Stafford for most of those. And it's like, yes, you could say that, like, it's Kirk Cousins, JJ's Matthew Stafford. And it's like, the Vikings definitely have needs other than quarterback, other than, like, anywhere on the offense. We need defensive players. But, like, for me, the big thing is in the Vikings, this is kind of shifting more to draft strategy from this, is, hi, everybody. Just want to take a quick moment out of today's podcast to tell you about our sponsor for today, BETUS, a sports book that has it all, whether it's basketball, hockey, football, soccer, whatever you like to bet on, BETUS has you covered. And they are offering our viewers and listeners today a 125% sign-up bonus just for using our link down below in the description. So go ahead, use that link down below and get your 125% sign-up bonus, BETUS. And now, let's get back to the podcast. The reason why I think people are talking about the Vikings trading up is, I don't know if you heard this, Brandon, but I was listening to Mina Kimes' podcast, and I can't remember who the dude she had on. It's a dude that I'm like not recognize like his face or his name, but he said the Vikings apparently last year tried to just trade the war chest for Richardson out of Florida. They tried to give the Colts numerous picks, and the Colts looked at it and were like, hey, you're going to be good. They're going to be low picks. We're just going to draft AR themselves, because apparently the Vikings want a dual threat quarterback. That makes me think, are people just saying the Vikings are going to trade up because they tried to trade for one last year, and we got guys like Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix, who are 2 mobile quarterbacks? Like, do you honestly see the Vikings trying to trade up for a quarterback no matter who it is?
Honestly, Ricky, I think that at this point, with the amount of quarterback needy teams, I think a lot of them, they wouldn't be doing due diligence if they weren't checking in to see what they might be able to get, to see who they might be able to bid for. I mean, I think that's just kind of the number one. And, I know we're focusing on the Minnesota Vikings, but I mean, look at all the different teams out there that need a quarterback. If they're not checking in, I mean, the Chicago Bears should be talking to every single team out there just to see.
Are you a Fields boy? Are you a Fields supporter?
Yeah, I am. I think that I don't think the Chicago Bears have given him adequate time. I don't think it's fair. I don't think that you can have a team that's got an ownership that is about as good as Jerry Reinsdorf, leading the charge, and then putting it into the hands of a guy who's only been there for a couple of years, Brian Poles, who I do like and I think can make some good moves and has. I think that Justin Fields has really been given ample time to succeed there. And I know this isn't a Justin Fields podcast, but I think that
it's interesting to know your answer, though, because you are a Bears fan. And for those out there, I will put in the top right here. We have a podcast on that. You can check it out. But hey, you being a Bears fan, I want to know all your opinions, because number 1 pick, are they going to pick it or will it be tradable?
Right now the Bears are playing it really, it seems like really close to the chest, and which is annoying, I think, for Justin Fields. I think he just wants to know, like, let me clue me in on what's going to happen. I think teams don't do a good enough job of being good stewards of their own players to let them know what's going on. But that again goes back to everyone should be checking in. Every team that is even remotely needing a quarterback, they have to. Why not? You have one of the best quarterback classes, so we're told, until we find out that Caleb Williams is just Jamarcus Russell again. We don't know that. That's why I think it's so hard, though, to say and put all of your eggs in one basket and say, okay, let's go get this rookie because everyone's saying that he's the best talent that they've ever seen. Bullshit. I can't jump on board with that because everyone's the best talent you've ever seen until they're put into a very fast environment where all of a sudden, guess what? They're not the best talent you've ever seen anymore because now they're going against the best, the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, and they can't keep up with it.
And you say quarterback needy teams. There's the Bears potentially, whether you believe in Fields or not. They're a team that people think need a quarterback. Washington could fit in there. They're in the same boat. They have a guy in Sam Howell that they could be like, we're going to ride with him again. Patriots need a quarterback. Vikings need a quarterback if they're not going to bring back Cousins. The Atlanta Falcons do if they're not going to trade for Fields because that's been the team that's linked to Fields the most. You have Denver that's in the quarterback discussion. Rumors that Sean Payton could be trying to trade up for his guy. The Raiders are in rumors of trading up. Like, what? That alone, Patriots, Vikings, Raiders, Broncos. That's 4 teams.
7 teams.
Yeah, it's like with the
everyone
Bears,
you
with the
even
Bears,
mentioned,
yeah,
so you
Bears,
like 7
Commanders,
teams there, yeah.
And it's like, will all those teams take quarterbacks? Probably not. But it's just, here's the other thing we gotta think about when it comes to drafts is we could say until we're blue in the face, oh, this team needs to trade up. This team needs to trade up. You gotta have a dance partner to make a trade. It's like you're at the school dance and you're going up. Hey, do you want to dance? That girl could say no. The team you call, ring, ring. Hey, I want to make a trade for the number 1 pick. The Bears could say no. No, we're not going to trade it. And then it's like, well, great. I can't trade unless you want to. I think it's going to be interesting. Will teams at the top want to trade? Because for me personally, I think the Bears are locked. I'm not going to say locked in because, like you said, playing it close to the chest. The Bears could be pretty much set on Williams. The Patriots could be like, we need a quarterback. We can't trade the pick. If quarterback go in the top 3, no way the Cardinals are trading the pick because how you pass it on Marvin Harrison Jr., a talent we're not even talking about because we want to talk about quarterbacks. Chargers could be like, whoa, we can't afford to trade it, to where it's like all these teams at the top could be like, whoa, we need guys at the top here. We're not going to move back just to let you move up and take a quarterback. So, like, I'll ask you, do you think there will even be opportunities for teams to trade up? Because will teams basically be like, no, we're not open for business because we need to make our pick here?
Well, if a team says, no, we're not open for business, they're probably not doing really good business. I mean, they really should be listening to everything. I mean, if they've got a good GM, they're open to anything. Whether or not they pull the trigger is another thing. But I think that for the right price, you can do it. I mean, just look at last year. And again, not to go back to the Bears, but they are the ones that did it. I mean, they got a major haul for their pick. And I think people were like, wow, Carolina gave up a lot to get that pick. And then they saw who they picked, and then everyone was like, you suck, Carolina. Can't believe you did that. But, you know, I think, though, but that's also a bit of a, is that maybe a cautionary tale? Now, I don't think that Bryce Young is bad. I really don't. You know, I got a soft spot, you know, for him myself. But
he just looks bad compared to CJ Stroud.
But see, that's the thing is that's a, like I said, I think it's just kind of a cautionary tale of you know, certain things that happen and play out, and then here's what you go and get. and then it doesn't turn out right. So just like stick to the plan and don't get too, wild and creative and stuff like that. I mean that's also part of it. But that's why, and I know again this is linked a lot around draft and stuff like that, and it is fun to kind of have these discussions and dive in and look and all that type of stuff. I think these picks suck because ultimately, again, being someone who's grew up a Bears fan and they didn't know what to do when it came to their turn in the draft. They just, I think, threw a dart up on the board. It's like, oh, it says to take a kicker. It's the first round, Bill. I don't think we can do that. I think it's when you don't do it well for a long time, you just are kind of like, yeah, these picks aren't anything. We'll go more in free agency. But these picks for other teams really turn out to be very, very good. I mean, we talk so much about these picks at the beginning of the draft. My gosh. I mean, Tom Brady, he's an easy one at the end of the draft. Brock Purdy nearly won a Super Bowl in year 2, guy at the end of the draft. I know it's about, trading up. It's just trading into the right round at the right time with the right partner.
I'm glad you brought this up because I was scrolling through Instagram today and I saw a clip of Mel Kiper was on the Waddle and Sylvie show here in Chicago. He called in and was on the radio show. And yet again, some people may look at it and go, that's fake news. I don't believe the story. But the story he told was apparently the Chiefs, the year before they drafted Mahomes, really wanted Paxton Lynch. And they couldn't find a trade partner, couldn't move up for him, didn't get Paxton Lynch. Next year they draft Mahomes. And it was kind of a cautionary thing of like, well, what if they did move up and trade for Paxton Lynch? Chiefs would have never had Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid probably isn't looked at as the Hall of Fame coach he is today. Kansas City doesn't have 2 back-to-back Super Bowls. They're 3 Super Bowls with this core? 2 back-to-back? And they're, as Travis Kelce said, 3 in a row was always the goal. So they're going to be shooting for it obviously next year. But like, they don't have 3 Super Bowls, 2 back-to-back, if they trade for Paxton Lynch the year before.
I think but that's exactly it. It's timing. It's the right deal. I mean, again, look at the Bears. They went and they reached hard a couple of years ago for Mitch Trubisky, and they missed out. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, I think, is a serviceable backup. Not even everyone would agree with that. And the Chicago Bears traded a lot to go get him. And they jumped over, and everyone wants to talk about, well, they didn't take Patrick Mahomes. Well, they would have ruined him with the coaching staff they had, so it really didn't matter. But like, they jumped over him. They jumped over others that were there that if the Chicago Bears would have taken him, they're probably a different franchise today, and they're not sitting where they're currently sitting. So again, it's so many stories just kind of go to show but they're on both sides. There's some that are showing, whoa, you've really got to dig deep and do your homework. And sometimes it really works out well. And there's other times where it seems like, did these guys look at anything? Did they watch any tape? Because they just gave up a ton. They jumped up or jumped back and took this person who they thought was just going to be this gold mine for them. And they're not even in the league 4 years later. So, I mean, it happens. It just seems to happen to some teams more than others.
Well, it's like, you bring that up yet again. Reels today, I was on a roll with them. Can't remember who exactly said this, and I don't know if you've even heard about this, but apparently who was it? Because it was someone who was saying that John Fox told him this story at a cocktail party of basically the year with Trubisky. Pace did his thing where he kept everything close to the chest. He went to the Sun Bowl, and nobody found out they were drafting Mitch until 5 p.m., 2 hours before the draft. Pace comes in and goes, I've made a trade. We're trading up to 2, and we're taking Mitch. John Fox was like thought we were taking Jamal Adams at 3. Like, that was the plan. Jamal Adams at 3 and comes in 2 hours before without no one knowing, hey, I made it. We're trading up. We're going to take Mitch at 2. And it's
it's one of those things where a guy's made a deal like that all on his own and had gone rogue, and he wasn't Batman saving the day. He was the Joker coming in, and everyone's like, you didn't have makeup on your face a couple hours ago, but you do now.
You want to see how I can put the smile on my face? You want to see how I got these scars? Brandon, let's kind of change gears here a little bit. And our second topic, the second one I wanted to talk about, necessarily isn't a draft topic, but it could relate to the draft. And like, I'll mention how it could relate to the draft as we talk about it. But the biggest news in the NFL right now that we have not been able to talk about on this podcast, coming out of the Super Bowl, is about Brandon Ayuk, where there have been things posted by his family members saying that he's gone. He doesn't want to be with the Niners anymore. There was a quote I saw from ESPN where basically it was, and I'm paraphrasing here, where like he looks at the guys and he looks like he's got Brock Purdy, but then he looks at Lamar Jackson and is like, man, I'd love to have him as my quarterback. Kind of taking a dig at his quarterback Purdy for being not Lamar Jackson and not being an MVP. Brandon, I will ask you this. There are many articles that I'm seeing, much like this one from the NinersNation.com, which is the SB Nation Niners site, and it says, ESPN Insider believes the most likely outcome this offseason involves trading Brandon Ayuk. In your opinion, what is your percentage on Ayuk being traded before the start of next season?
I saw the same article that you're talking about. I think it was Dan Graziano.
Yep.
Was the one in there. I think it's probably like 65% that he's traded going into this next year. I think it's also one of those from San Francisco is that they've got such a plethora of talent. It gets to a point where there's also so many mouths to feed because it feels like, okay, this day it's Brandon Ayuk and this day it's Debo and this day it's Kittle and now it's McCaffrey all the time. And while that gets to be in a lot of ways great because you have all of this great talent and Purdy has so many different places to go with the football and so many ways to score, from the perception of I need to do my thing. I gotta get my stats. I'm not saying that that's not exactly how they look at it, but they want to get the football. They want the football to be in their hands. They're competitive.
Wide receivers are divas for a reason.
They want to get paid. They want to do all that stuff. And Brandon Ayuk is just not going to, as good as he is, and he's fantastic. He's a great talent. He's a great receiver. He's not going to be your number one 100% guy in San Francisco when you're one overshadowed by the running back, and then you've got another guy with Debo Samuel on the other side that's also taken time away from you as well. So I think that also going to be some teams who they need to add some pieces. They really need to add some pieces. I think one thing that will be really interesting, and I had kind of seen an article with this, is that Washington Commanders are under new ownership.
Yep.
And what would be great for them and to just reach, maybe not with a reach, but go and get a guy like Brandon Ayuk and say, hey, we're ready to compete. We're changing ownership. We've got some issues, but let's go. We're going to compete in the NFC East here. And we know to do that, we have to build, and we need another guy that's trustworthy alongside Terry McLaurin. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go get Brandon Ayuk.
Now, I'm going to say a different team Cincinnati Bengals. The reason why I'm saying this is, so I did some thinking this week, Brandon. It's very scary when Ricky does any sort of thinking. But
You always are thinking, though, so it's always scary.
I was looking at things because I was doing my mock draft. Mock draft is going to be from when this podcast is out. It probably is already out, or it's out the same day. I don't know how things are going to line up. I'm not going to promise anything. But the day we're recording this on Wednesday, right before we recorded this, I recorded my mock draft. And one of the similarities I thought was interesting of could an Ayuk trade get done and will it involve draft picks is, let's think back to 2022. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine, go back 2 years ago. Brandon, there was a receiver who was 24 at the time, going into the 22 draft, had played with his team for 3 years, had 1,000-yard receiving years his rookie year, his sophomore year, and then 800 yards his last year. And I looked at Brandon Ayuk and I was like, how many years has he been in the league? He's been in there 4, so an extra year. 750 the first year, 826 the second, but the last 2 years he's been a 1,000-yard receiver. And I'm like, okay, now have these guys been touchdown machines for those teams? The guy that I was talking about, who was a 24-year-old 3-year pro in 22, 8 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. Ayuk's at 5.587. So around the same. They're not lighting it up with the touchdowns. Like the one guy had 11 touchdowns. That's pretty good for that year, but it's under a touchdown a game. Brandon, I'll ask you, do you remember what big wide receiver got traded right before or right around the 2022 draft? Because he's played with his new team for now 2 years.
I was going to say A.J. Brown.
Exactly, A.J. Brown. And I'm thinking, do we get a similar deal here of could a team trade A.J. Brown that year? Because I have it pulled up here. The deal with Tennessee and Philly was Philly traded its first-round pick, which was 18th overall, and its third-round pick for A.J. Brown. Could a deal like that get Brandon Ayuk to a team, or would someone need more? Is there inflation, basically?
Well, it did. It comes to draft picks, it's always, what does the other team look for? Mm-hmm. The team that's looking to acquire, where do they hold them in terms of stock and stuff like that? Because the 49ers are going to say, hey, this is 100% what he's worth, and this is what we're looking to get back. And another team may be saying, hey, Ayuk's not just enough. We've got to get Ayuk and something else out of this too. But I think that you're probably the better one to speak on the side of the draft picks. But I don't know in terms of exactly round wise, where that would come in. Mm-hmm. How high is too high, how low is too low. I'm really probably not the best guy for something like that. But my whole thing is, you mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Mm-hmm. T. Higgins
as a potential
free agent
spot. The thing, though, why not just bring T. Higgins back? I go get a guy like Ayuk that, I mean, you put a healthy T. Higgins and a healthy Brandon Ayuk. You don't need, you let Higgins walk and then you'd go and get Ayuk. I'd feel like just keep Higgins.
But if you bring both of them in, are you creating the same problem that the Niners have? Too many mouths to feed.
Oh, you definitely are, especially when you've got Jamar Chase as the other guy. I mean, that gets real dangerous. So I mean that ends up being kind of a potential tough scenario right there. But I just think that I feel like more and more Duke probably is going to end up being gone before we hit a new season.
I will also throw out Tyler Boyd is also a free agent for them. So Boyd, Higgins, they bring both, like, good thing free agent. Like, this is the thing I love about football than basketball. Free agency happens before the draft. We get to see where guys are going, like, oh, what free agents are going to go where, and then base our draft decisions off of it. Where in the NBA, you have to go, okay, what young player do you want? Yeah, we have this free agent. I don't know if he's going to stay or not. Nope, you got to make a decision. What young player do you want? And that's the only reason why I throw out the Bengals. But, like, there was an idea that I had, crazy kind of just thinking idea, and I'll throw it out to you. This would involve draft picks at some point, but it's really two teams shifting wide receivers. And there's a part of me that thinks in the draft, the Buffalo Bills need to draft one of these wide receivers, because the wide receiver class this year, in my opinion, is the best top to bottom class that we have ever seen. I'm not talking about just first round picks. I'm talking there are guys in the second and third that I absolutely love. There's even guys day 3 that I absolutely love. This could be, and I think it is, the deepest wide receiver class we've seen. And there's a part of me that goes, the Bills need help there, because I'm sorry, Stephon Diggs, he's done. He's done. Dunzo. He's not what he ain't the Minnesota Stephon Diggs anymore. He's the one that stands there, takes an Instagram picture after your team loses, watching the other team celebrate. There's a thought in my head, Brandon, is could there be a trade between the Bills and the Niners? Obviously, there's more to this, but the basis of the trade is we're sending Diggs to you. Now, I know the Bills also have Gabe Davis as a free agent. Keep that in mind. We're sending Diggs to you. You're sending Ayuk to us. Picks and stuff will be included, but mainly the crux of the trade is we're just going to get our guys new scenery. We're going to swap wide receivers. You get a guy of, well, quality. I think I'm getting the better guy in Ayuk. But you get a guy that you think can be a wide receiver next to Debo. You're not losing much. I get a wide receiver that I think can help me beat Patrick Mahomes.
It's an interesting scenario. I do in that scenario that Stephon Diggs would say, no, I'm not going to go play with Brock Purdy because he's not good enough at quarterback.
Does he have a no trade clause?
I don't know.
Okay.
If he does, but just being
question to think about.
Just being picky and kind of going back to this who you want to play with mentality and stuff like that. And, you're seeing guys wanting to play with certainly, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, those types of quarterbacks. And right now, I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. I think that he certainly not the reason that the San Francisco 49ers lost the Super Bowl.
No, it's Kyle Shanahan's fault.
And I've got a comment to that actually as well. But I think that when it comes down to that, guys are probably looking for, if it's up to them, type of deal. I don't know if that trade happens because Stephon Diggs has because you don't know exactly what is true and what is not. And there was so much drama around him last year coming into the season. And, Diggs wants this. And then it's like, oh, no, Diggs actually didn't say that. And then it's like, oh, he said this instead. No, he didn't say that either. And you just start to kind of think, okay, it sounds so Madonna-esque. And I know you said it, that's just the wide receiver class. They're prima donnas in a generalization. But would he look at that and say, I'm getting a demotion. I'd rather stay here with Josh Allen and see how we can figure it out.
My first thought to it is he doesn't have a no trade clause. So basically, you're SOL. Like, if I want to trade you, I'm trading you. The only reason I thought about it in my head is I look at the games this season. So, wild card game against the Dolphins, he had a really nice game. 7 catches, 87 yards, no touchdown. But then after that, against Pittsburgh, 7 receptions, only 52 yards, no touchdowns. Against the Chiefs, 3 catches on 8 targets, 21 yards. It's like, you're my number one receiver. Now, yet again, could be a hey, Ricky, that's not his fault. But like, when I see they went to you 8 times and you have 3 receptions, I'm gonna need more than 21 yards in a divisional game against the no, wait, I got that wrong. The Dolphins game was week 17. It was Pittsburgh was the divisional series, and then the Chiefs, because they didn't make the conference title. It was the divisional round against the Chiefs. 21 yards in that game, that's unacceptable for my number one wide receiver.
You're being guarded by arguably some of the best cornerbacks in football.
Point taken.
I mean, so I think there is that, but if you, which I know you watched the game, how many miss hits did Josh Allen have with Stephon Diggs? But at the same time, we all remember that long, deep pass that Allen had towards the end of the game. Diggs had it go right through his hands. I mean, he had it. He was right there. If he puts his hands on it, holds on to it, it's a different ball game, and Buffalo maybe wins. So, I think that it was a mixture of Allen and Diggs, but I don't know exactly what it was. I don't have the stats up in front of me, but the first half of the season, Stephon Diggs was fantastic.
Yeah.
Played the way that Stephon Diggs plays. The back half of the season, I mean, I think there were wide receivers that, were like 3 and 4 wide receivers on their teams were having better statistical seasons on the back half than Stephon Diggs was. Yeah. And that's a problem, again, when that's your number one wide receiver. And that's one of those questions that you then get into. Is it your receiver? Is it your quarterback?
Yeah, and I mean...
Who's at fault?
I don't know. For me, it's one of those things where it's like... Because I think about what you said with I almost have the thought of if you get your hands on it, you should catch the ball. So that's why I lean towards the wide receiver.
And that's...
Like, if your hand touches it, you should catch it. You should... Now, if it touches your fingertips, like, okay. But, like, if it's there and you miss it, that's on you. That's not on Josh Allen. And, like, the thing that I wonder when it comes to Ayuk, will it be a team that's in playoff contention that trades for him, or a team that's not in playoff contention? Like you said, the Commanders, not in playoff contention right now, but with an Ayuk, could they be? Now, I'm telling you, if the Commanders get Brandon Ayuk, that wide receiver core is one of the best in the league. With Scary Terry, Samuel, you add Ayuk to that, like, game over. Game over with what they could do. Sam Howell, it's on you then, because you got weapons beyond weapons to throw to. One thing I'm going to ask you is, you said when I brought up it's Kyle Shanahan's fault, you said you've got some comments about that. Do you disagree with me or agree with me? Because you're a Chiefs. I'm going to say this. You're a Bears fan, but I am going to put it on the record. You are a Chiefs fan also, because you have family in KC. So you were happy that the Niners lost.
Thrilled that the Niners lost. I was hoping that they would and lose quick enough. I was thrilled for Kansas City and for Patrick Mahomes in a season when there was plenty of adversity, and he had probably the least amount of talent on the offense that he's had to this point, and still they were able to not just make the playoffs, not just make the divisional round or the conference championship. Like that, they made the Super Bowl and they won it in overtime, and one of the best games I think I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
But my whole thing with Kyle Shanahan is, so later that week, I saw a report that all of the coaches were coming back. All the coaches were coming back. And I'm like, okay, cool. They probably should come back because I don't think anyone really did anything, wrong outside of, Kyle Shanahan not being able to, finish off a game and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that you can really lay this loss at the doorstep of any other coach. And then I hear that Steve Wilks, the guy whose defense held the Kansas City Chiefs to under 20 points before overtime, and okay, they end up winning 25-22, but you fire him. A guy who had the scariest defenses in the league, the 49ers. You looked at the whole mass of work and said, I think we're going to go with this guy. We're going to get rid of that man right there.
Brandon, what's that?
Yeah. That's a goat. That is a sheepish goat.
That is a scapegoat. And I have not had a chance to rant about this, and I'm glad I do. The Super Bowl loss is 100% on Kyle Shanahan for two reasons and two reasons alone. The first reason I'm going to say is a very simple one. Brandon, do you know, I'm going to quiz you a little bit. Do you know how many times CMC touched the ball in the third quarter?
I don't.
Twice. He was killing the Chiefs. Now, don't get me wrong. Full disclosure, I had a lot of money. I had about 30 some bucks, which is a lot of money for me. 30 some bucks on the Chiefs, and I was happy that I was able to cash in. So, hey, you didn't give the ball to CMC. I'm happy with it. You won me money. But how do you forget your best player? And how do you forget the player that the Chiefs couldn't stop him? They just kept getting tired, and he just kept going. How do you forget about that? The second thing, Brandon, this infuriated me when I heard this, in ESPN articles after the game. So first off, players had said they didn't know the new rules to overtime, which I'm like, come on. The ref explained it before overtime. Just use your ears and listen. They pipe it through the
also
speakers
to that
of the
point.
stadium.
To that point, why admit it?
Yeah, why admit it? Here's the second thing, and this is the egregious thing, Brandon. I don't know if you read this, but I did. When Kyle Shanahan was asked about it, about the little dysfunction between the overtime plan, he basically passed the buck to his assistants and went, well, that was on them. I told them to go tell the offense and the defense what's going on. And, if people didn't hear what the plan was or what, that ain't on me because I wasn't supposed to tell them. They were. It's like, what are you talking about? You're going to pass the buck onto your assistant coaches? You are the head coach. And this is an example, Brandon, of how some coaches are different. And I know that not everyone is Bill Belichick or that Belichick mind. I bet you the Chiefs even walked through practice once. Hey, guys, if this game goes to overtime, this is the plan. Just so people have it. You have to think of every possible outcome in the biggest game in the world. Hey, coach, what if they do this? You can't just be like, well, I don't know, we'll figure it out. No. You didn't have a plan, and then when you did, I'm just going to delegate that to other work. In the biggest game of the year? Second Super Bowl now, you're losing to this Chiefs team?
Ricky, Drew Tranquil from the Kansas City Chiefs said that Andy Reid specifically walked them through what they were going to do if they went to overtime, if they won the coin toss, if they lost the coin toss. They knew the scenario. They played them out. They worked through them. That's what happens when you have a winning football coach. That's why you win. Because you have a coach that is savvy, that knows every facet of the game, in the game. And, Kyle Shanahan should be ashamed. And you want to be a coach, you want to be a leader of men, you've got to come out and say, you know what, this one, it was on me.
Mm-hmm.
No, obviously we wasn't out there playing. The guys, were the ones to do it, but I'm the one who's supposed to have these guys ready. I'm this one who's supposed to have these guys prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't because who else's job is that? If it's not yours, then pay those assistants more because they should be getting part of your salary then.
Yeah.
I think that's a garbage answer. And I think that's why, but that also goes to show you if that's his type of answer, of course his guys are going to come out and say, well, we had no idea. Well, why not? Why? Of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Coach is a moron. You're going to look like morons.
And I will say, I wonder if that, like, not that specifically, but if that's how the organization is run from the coaching level, I can totally understand why Brandon Ayuk would be upset and be like, I want to trade. I want out of here. I could understand that because, like, I'll say it this way. You look at the rate, like, because in the one article I read, he mentioned Lamar Jackson. Look at the Ravens and look at the Niners. Both lost to the Chiefs. Both teams, to me, completely different feelings after those games. Where the Niners are probably sitting there going, yeah, that's on us. We should have had that game. Like, we dominated them. It looked like the Niners were probably going to win that game until the very end. Whereas the Ravens, I have a feeling that, like, if I was them, it would be like hey, we left everything out on the field. We just couldn't convert. We just didn't make the plays when they needed to be done. Whereas the Ravens, I'm not putting the buck on. No one made a big mistake. Like, yeah, players have played better. You can live with that. You can't live with, wow, we didn't know the rules of overtime. We weren't set up for it. So therefore, we were at a disadvantage.
The other thing that I think is just so funny is ultimately you can strategize whatever you want, but ultimately it's like, get the football, go score a touchdown. Yep. Like, that's just how you play. You don't want field goals, even in like normal overtime rules. Like, get the ball and go score a freaking touchdown. Like, welcome to football. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what I think is even more just like okay, you put even more. If they could have done that, could Mahomes have come right back and scored a touchdown? Yes, he could have. Would he have? Chances are high. Because that's where he thrives. But you've just put even more pressure on a team that had been under pressure throughout the game, and you couldn't do that. So I also feel like, what was your strategy? Please tell me, idiot. But that's kind of like what it was. You're talking to someone who's like a newbie, and I think that's the difference between good teams, championship teams. Good team, absolutely, get to the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins got to the playoffs. They're not a great team. They're a good team. Got some high-powered offense.
The Bills,
they're not a great
team. The Bills keep getting to the playoffs.
Bills
they're
are
a good team. Doesn't help that wide right struck them again, right?
Oh, that was a toughie.
Was that a toughie for you, Brandon? You loved it.
Oh, I was, again, thrilled. Like, Pittsburgh Steelers, somehow, some way, they found a way to the playoffs. I don't know how. God and miracles.
You know how. You know how. Who's their coach?
Yeah, I know.
He's good. It's the like Mike Tomlin. I could, for everything I have bad to say about Mike Tomlin, he just knows how to get his teams to playoffs some years. To where it's like, as long as he's the coach, they have a chance to get to the playoff.
It's even more confounding when you're like, wow, he had good players. What he currently has.
Did the Joe Burrow injury maybe play into that division a little bit? Like, maybe the Bengals are in the playoffs if Joe Burrow's not injured the whole year?
True. But ultimately, it's like, okay, these teams are good teams. They're not great teams. But what is going to make the great team? It's the players. Yeah. It's also going to be the coaching. It's the guy that people rally around. It's the guy that people buy into, and they buy into the strategy, and they buy into the system, and they will go where that coach is leading them to.
Yeah.
And that's Andy Reid. That's Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. And for anyone who's, a Chiefs hater, doesn't want to hear about, but it's true. I mean, look at the guy. He sets stuff up, and he has the right players to go and execute it. Yeah. And they trust him. And Patrick Mahomes says it time and time again. He trusts Andy Reid, and he doesn't believe that he'd be successful or as successful with any other coach. Mm-hmm. I don't think those are just words. I think he's being honest, because Andy Reid lets him do his thing. Andy Reid's not putting him in a box. He's not saying, Patrick, this is how you have to play. Because we all know that they would be like, screw you. This is how we're going to play. But Andy Reid doesn't do that.
Andy also lets them remember, Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey have talked about it, where basically they have time where they can workshop plays, and then only when it's ready, they get to bring it to him. And it's like, okay, what play are we going to try? And that's how we get some of the the backyard plays that they do, where they basically workshop them, and then he lets them, hey, bring them to me. Okay, let's see how it works. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting with Brandon Ayuk. I think it's a 90% chance he gets traded. I didn't answer the question. I guess I'll answer it. I think it's a 90% chance he gets traded. I think it's going to be too volatile.
You're really high. You're really high.
As soon as you get a player that is in that attitude, it's just going to turn into a cancer, and you can't have that on your team. So I think they're going to be forced to trade him. Where he goes, I have no idea. I have zero idea who's going to trade for him. Whether it's going to be a team that is not in the playoffs, a team that is borderline playoffs, or a team that is that's a contender. But Brandon, that's going to do it for the draft room. I want to first off thank you for filling in for JD this week. You really did me a solid today, bro, because I needed you in the biggest way, and you came through for me.
Well, thanks for asking me to come on. Obviously probably a little rusty, haven't done this in some time, but always enjoy being able to talk some NFL and talk about the topics that we had today. It's a lot of fun. Always fun talking with you, Ricky. Always have a lot of laughs, and it's always enjoyable. Mm-hmm. So thanks for asking me, and happy to do it.
Brandon, I've told you numerous times, you're welcome back to MVP whenever you want. You're home here. You're home. I told this to Mark. I've told this to you. I've told this to Sean. All three of you. Johnny too. All you guys are welcome back whenever you guys want. You just give me a call and I'll work it out. But that does it for the draft room today. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section about everything we talked about. If you want to join the Discord, below in the description. Patreon, below in the description. Hit that sub button if you love the podcast. Hit that like button if you liked it as well. Go check out our other videos. I'm going to have my draft videos up. Mock drafts coming up. I'm diving into film. Going to have that videos up as well. I want to, again, for the millionth time, thank you guys for everything that you do. And as always, have a good day, everybody. As always, we'd like to thank the people that make these videos possible, our patrons whose names are displayed on the screen now. If you would like to become a patron, go ahead and click the Patreon icon in the bottom right. And if you'd like to check out another video from MVP Sports, hit the video in the upper left. As always, thanks for watching.